Hi there everybody, this is David, and today I want to talk about the 5 best RPGs as well as the 5 worst RPGs released this year. Personally, I don't really know what's more fun, talking about great games or just like trashing the crap out of some pretty frickin' shitty dumpster fire games. Well, actually, yeah, that's kind of easy. I love trash talking games. It's so much fun. And I do hope that y'all have some fun watching this too, as I do try my hardest to hit 100,000 subscribers. And with your help, your like, and your sub, I just know that I can get there. So thank you so much for that. And now, let me go ahead and start highlighting some great games and some vomitrocious games too. Let's start with the high point though. The Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. Pretty much ever since I can remember, Dragon Quest III has been one of my favorite games of all time. I've played every single iteration of it, but this remake just blows the rest completely out of the water. Not only have all of the job classes been completely rebalanced, but a brand new job class has been added in. There's also new flashbacks detailing Ortega's journey, brand new bosses to fight, tons of new treasures, locations, and secret areas to find, as well as a monster arena. Not only that, but there's also a pretty robust post-game too. If you're looking for a challenging, traditional turn-based RPG with a world map and turn-based combat, then definitely look no further than this. Now, as much as I do love Dragon Quest, there is another series that I absolutely adore, and that's the Trails series. Too bad the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel the Northern War mobile game really fricking sucked. I mean, it's mobile, of course it sucked. But this sucked even more than normally for mobile. It's based upon that equally terrible anime series, and while it does seem to have an interesting setting, I mean, it follows a group of Jaegers in Northumbria after all, at the end of the day, it's just lazy. Number 1, all of the storytelling takes place in like a visual novel format. Number 2, the translation is just absolutely abysmal. Probably just run through AI and not even spell checked. The cutscenes are ripped straight from the anime with the original Japanese voiceover and no subtitles, so you have absolutely no idea what's actually going on. And then the battles are like an idle RPG where you just kind of like watch them take place and you hope and pray that your levels and equipment are high enough to win. Personally, I'm just hoping and praying that they never make another game like this again. Instead, let's make something great, like Metaphor ReFantazio. I'm not the biggest fan of Persona, mostly because I don't like RPGs that take place in high schools. I don't like sitting down to study while I play a game, and I don't like going to part-time jobs either. I think it's all just so painfully boring. So yeah, you bet I was worried whenever they said that this had Persona influences. But at the same time, it takes place in a fantasy world, and has a ton of SMT influences too, in addition to a glorious job system. And believe me, there is nothing I love more than a great job system. Add to that the press-turn combat system, fantastical locations, and a gripping storyline, and you not only have one of the best games of the year, but you actually have one of the best games ever made. This is definitely one that will stand the test of time, and people will still be talking about it even 10 to 20 years from now. Let's just hope that this series here becomes a third pillar for Atlus, along with Persona and SMT. But a series that never should have even been born? Enter Radus. What a dumpster fire this thing was. I thought that it would be fun whenever I first played it back at PAX, and it looked pretty cool, but the full game is just so awful and boring. The combat just really blows. You're constantly switching between being a magic user or being a human so that you can actually use your attacks or not. Then you have those quick time events in combat too. On paper, I guess it seems fine, but in action, ugh, it's just the worst. Though, could anything be worse than these graphics? I've literally seen some PS2 games that look better than this. It's really atrocious and ridiculous. I mean, just look how terrible all that looks compared to how great Final Fantasy VII Rebirth looks. Believe me, I've had my own personal qualms with Square's decision to divide this game up into 3 different parts, but the end result is really quite fantastic. In this installment, you finally leave that dreary shithole of Midgar, and then you're out in the open world. And boy do they mean open, as these regions are just massively huge. You'll get to explore them with the help of your trusty chocobos, find all sorts of stuff out in the wilderness, and then the towns and dungeons themselves are much more fully fleshed out, as well as the characters and the story. You just never know what you're going to stumble across next here. It's so frickin' cool. But here's something that really should have been cool, but it wasn't, and that's the Skies of Arcadia inspired Sky Ocean Wings for Hire. I mean, whenever you say that your game is a spiritual successor to one of gaming's most timeless classics, then you really does need to live up to the hype. Unfortunately for us though, this thing just crashed and burned. Not only is it rife with bugs and just janky to the max, but for a game that should pride itself on exploration and like flying and traveling through the skies, there's just nothing out there to find. There's nothing to do. So you just end up going from point A to point B, which is made all the worse because most of the time you're not really fighting against the enemies. Instead, you're fighting against the god-awful camera. That camera is the main boss of the game here. It's so bad. And now, from the so bad to the so good, let's talk about Unicorn Overlord. As far as I'm concerned, this one here just came out of like left field. And real-time strategy RPGs are kind of niche in and of themselves, but Vanillaware does not miss, and they hit it out of the park with this one. I personally love games like Ogre Battle 64 and Growlancer, and this here is kind of like a combination, a best of both worlds, as you traverse the lands, putting a stop to the evil Emperor, while simultaneously rescuing all your friends, and the story itself is lighthearted, the combat is also lightning and quick, it's absolutely gorgeous, and just like Metaphor ReFantazio, this game here definitely deserves to spawn its own franchise. However, Farmagia needs to be stopped dead in its tracks. And that's a shame, because I was really looking forward to this one. I thought that it looked so cool, but this game here commits many cardinal sins. From those visual novel type cutscenes, to implementing a useless farming sim quest for no real reason, just for shits and giggles, to having randomly generated dungeons with random warp points that randomly send you all over the place until you randomly hit the end. Then, to top it all off, the dungeons are timed. Oh joy. You know just how much I love being timed in a game. That's just fantastic. The combat is absolutely frantic. Basically, it just has you like sick all your little monsters on the enemies where you hold down the face buttons, and then you like run around to revive them whenever they inevitably die. There's really nothing to it at all. It just, again, seems so random. Visions of Mana, though, is chock full of love and charm. I really do love the Mana series, and I will be the first to admit that its recent entries have not exactly been the strongest entries. What made it great were the first couple of games, and Square Enix seems to know this as well, so they went back to the basics. This is a glorious, beautiful, open region RPG where you explore massive areas and then use the mana spirits to help in combat as well as exploration. And you can even use them to change your classes too. The party members are fun and memorable, the graphics are just to die for, and it really is a blast experimenting with all the different classes available in the fun, fast combat and beautiful world. But you know what's not fun? Painfully boring, monotonous, never-ending, let's do the exact same thing over and over and over and over again type of RPGs. And that's our final worst entry, that time that I got reincarnated as a slime, Isekai Chronicles. As if it's any shock to y'all that a game based upon an anime would be some sort of cheap cash grab. We saw this earlier with the Trails game, but at least this one here isn't gacha. Instead, it's just kind of like a nothingness game. The combat's always the same, the dungeons are ridiculous cut and paste nonsense, the town building might have well as not even been there, it's so useless, and everything is just kind of like a reskin of everything else. This could very well be one of the cheapest games ever made. So that's our 5 great games that you really need to buy this year, and 5 god-awful dumpster fires that you need to avoid. But now I have to ask you, what games do you think are great, and what games do you think belong in the trash can? Let me know in the comments, and let's all talk and chat about it. And if you like this video, here's another video that I really do think that you're going to enjoy, so please do check that one out. And also, please be sure to leave a like and a comment while you're here. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, have a good day.